25 misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. That's what we're going to be reacting to today. This is going to be interesting because obviously it's from a British perspective, and I suppose it's going to be similar to like how you guys interpret British people, like the misconceptions of like Mary Poppins, we all drink tea with crumpets and, you know, stuff like that. And I'm sure there's like American ones that we have heard of that might not necessarily be true. So here's 25 common misconceptions. Let's get into this, yo.
The United States often draws a lot of flack from the rest of the world for everything. From its foreign policy to the way it runs its domestic affairs. In fact, it seems like there are few things that can divide the world more evenly and more strongly than asking people what their opinion is of the United States. Everyone has an opinion. Even in the same city, you'll meet people who fall on the extreme sides of the spectrum. But what is it exactly that causes America to be so messed up? Even America's own politicians can't seem to stop talking about how messed up things are. Well, today we're going to take a deeper look. Are things really as bad as everyone seems to think they are? I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 common misconceptions about the United States.
I just want to say something quickly off the back of what he's just said. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's just America. I would say that's like the majority of the world and countries and stuff. And not even just countries, but it can be, well, opinions in general, really. Like, no one's allowed an opinion. Even me on this channel, I get pure hate, you know what I'm saying? But listen, subscribe if you're new. Like, hate, I love you all the same, right? But yeah, long story short, you can't please everyone. So that's the whole point. Even with politicians, there's like multiple parties, isn't there, that all disagree with each other. You're never going to please everyone. It's same with movies, books, you name it. Songs, genres, everyone's slightly different than the person next to them. So I wouldn't beat yourselves up about it, you know what I mean? But what are the common misconceptions?
That simply aren't true. And as a very important note, this list was produced by both a United States citizen and 2 European citizens that relocated to the United States.
Okay.
It's written to be as fair as possible. No, I'm not 2 Europeans.
What?
Or am I?
No, you're not.
All right. Let's begin with a really common thought. Americans are ignorant about the world. Americans are held to an unrealistic standard. Since the rest of the world watch our movies and listen to our music, they know a lot about our country. But let's be honest, they never studied it. People actually complain that Americans don't even know that Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. But neither does half the United Kingdom, and they're on the same continent.
That's true.
It turns out that all of us are pretty bad at geography. You'd think America would be better at it, however, considering another common thought is that America spends its days spying on everyone. And that's true, but who doesn't? Germany, France, Switzerland, Japan, Iceland, and all the rest of us spy on each other and ourselves.
At the end of the day, like, another thing, we can't brand ourselves, yeah? And I say we, I just mean, like, the common folk, the common person. In this, with the same paintbrush that you paint the politicians with at the end of the day, because, like, I can't criticize America on their political stance because really it's the politicians, if that makes sense. And same in England. Like, do you really think with everything that's going on in England right now, the common folk agrees to it? Like, anyone who doesn't know what's going on in the UK right now, just do a little bit of digging, you know what I mean? No one agrees to it, but you can't slander the common person because of that, you know what I mean? So, like, no one's judging the common American folk on political nonsense, if that makes sense.
Moving on, America has been called racist. Please don't take this the wrong way. Racism definitely exists, and it makes the news. But you know what else? America also has a vicious media, and all of the world watches it, sometimes more than their own media.
That's what I mean.
So when something super bad happens in other countries, it might not even make the back page.
Again, 9 out of 10 people don't care what race you are or where you come from. It's how you treat people at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And I guarantee if you speak to the person next to you, they'll probably agree with that. The majority of people. So again, not necessarily branding Americans with being racist. It's the media, exactly what he's just said. And the media push agendas. We all know that.
Next, it's a common misconception that Americans don't use public transport. While it's true that we use cars a lot, many regions in America have great public transport. Or at least just as good as Europe. Besides, what good is a train if nobody can afford it? We're looking at you, UK.
Amen.
Moving on. America does /
Well said,
has
brother.
/ is fill in the blank. America is far from being a unified entity. Each state has its own laws, cultures, and quirks. Some states have the death penalty. Some don't. Some have strict gun laws, and some don't. Some have free college. Some don't. Some have tax, and yeah, some don't. So just like you can't say Europe is so-and-so, you can't say the same about the US.
Do you know what? Like, I don't know what your opinion's on the fact that, you know, you got multiple states with different, like, laws and policies. But I personally think that that is a good thing. Because I always say, yeah, like if I had that in the United Kingdom, for example, then that would allow me to analyze what policies are in which states, and I could literally choose which one I like the sound of the most, and then go and live in that state. Do you know what I'm saying? In the UK, you can't do that. It's all the same. It's all the same. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, the United Kingdoms, like Wales, Ireland, the UK, United, more or less all run the same. Like in the you got multiple states, even though it's United States, like you bond together to an extent. You've got different rules and regulations within the pyramid scheme, and like I think that that's a good idea because you can literally choose which one of them you want to live in. And I'm not saying that any of them will be perfect by any stretch, you know what I mean, but you hear good and bad about different states, but I think that that's a good thing. And not only that, going back to opinions, and you can't please everybody, like, the way I see it is, back in the day, let's say, or, like, even to this day, you have, like, you know, Aborigine tribes and stuff like that, or, like, Amazon tribes, you know, and Mongolian tribes, or I don't know the proper lingo. Moral of the story is, when you have a small commune, it's easier to have structure. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, keep it simple, bro. That's your job, that's your job, that's your job. We all eat. Like, I think that that's the way it needs to be. As soon as you start getting too big, it's hard to keep that chain of command, and then it turns into a dictatorship. That's the way I see it. And so if the United States ever come together as just America, like, without separate state laws, and you're all under the same umbrella, I think you're going to have problems, and it's going to be one big dictatorship. And then the government can do whatever they want, whenever they want, just like they're doing in the United Kingdom right now.
As an additional note, the states are far more independent than many of us realize. In fact, every state even has its own military, known as the Guard. Furthermore, some states pass legislation that directly contradicts the federal government. This is because in the U.S., the federal government is not the highest authority. The states are.
Okay.
To further establish the fact that America isn't a single entity, many believe that Americans only speak one language. But that's no different from the rest of the world. Have you ever been to France? or the UK or Italy, or how about China? Most of them only speak one language too. That being said, over 20% of the US is bilingual.
I'm pretty sure in like Russia there's multiple languages. Or am I confusing that with time zones? I don't know.
Now, let's talk about the military, because people outside the US will preach that America's military does, again, fill in the blank. Nobody is naive enough to think that the US doesn't have selfish interests in mind when it invades a country. There isn't a nation on earth that would do that selflessly. But whenever the bad goes down, it's just as common for other countries to complain that America should do something. On a more or less lighter note,
He doesn't know how to say it. Or
Americans are fat.
Don't worry.
You ever been to the UK lately?
Don't worry.
They're even scanned
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
because obese patients are getting turned down for surgery. Yes, America does have an obesity problem. But not all citizens are involved in it. I am.
Amen.
A big part of the United States is fairly health conscious and is consistently working to help the overweight population better their lives. Thanks, healthy people. And while we aren't perfect, many complain that America is worse than other developed nations in, well, everything. There are many statistics, child mortality, literacy, etc., where the US falls behind countries like Norway and Iceland. But those statistics are based on averages. In Norway, most of the 5 million inhabitants are rich, white, and Norwegian. If you took a similar sample of rich, white Americans in the US, you would find that the statistics are almost exactly the same. The fact is that the US is hugely diverse, and the American experience is completely different with and without money.
Well, you can blame Bill Rockefeller for that, because for anyone who doesn't know, he took over the education system. I think it was in America first. And basically, he quoted, I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers, and that is what I can give you. And that's pretty much what his pitch was to the education system and to get on all the panels. Go back, do your own research. So it's no mistake that they dumb the majority of people down. You know what I'm saying? And then going back to the fast food and all that, it's like, there you little enjoy that. You know what I mean? You become more lethargic, less interested, and then all this like scrolling on TikTok and stuff like that continuously, Instagram, whatever. It just feeds you all the alcohol, drugs. Like, if they really wanted to clean the place, they could. Not just America, but the UK. You know what I mean? The UK is very small. I once had this debate with my mate. When you think like of how small the UK is, and then how many cities there are, and then how many people within them cities every Friday and Saturday night go out, and how many of them abuse, certain substances, you would have to bring that in on mass, like tons of, sherbet lemon, if you get my drift. You'd have to bring it in just to maintain, like, the supply and how much of it's being used every weekend in every country and every city and every town by multiple thousands of people. You'd need tons of it coming in. And I refuse to believe that that's all happening illegally. Or some people would refuse to believe that with the tinfoil hats on.
Translation? The problem isn't healthcare or education, it's economic inequality, almost exclusively. And speaking of inequality, many make the simple but powerful assumption that America just isn't safe. This is usually what foreign citizens say until they actually come here. By this same logic, Paris, Brussels, London, Madrid, and almost every other city in Europe is unsafe as well.
Yep.
Yes, there are guns, but most Americans have never seen or heard a gun being fired. In fact, most Swiss citizens are much more familiar with gunfire than us Americans. All this being said so far, people still expect all Americans to relish in a life of our stereotypes. Guns,
I've got to be honest, that has actually shocked me a bit because I just assumed, like, literally, like, 1 in 3 Americans had a gun. Literally 1 in 3. Like, if you had 3 houses on a row, I assumed at least one of them would have, like, at least a handgun or something. I'm not saying that they would ever use it, but just for self-protection. That is a genuine misconception.
Dude, freedom! What I'm saying is, a lot of the world looks at America as overly patriotic. But here's an honest question. Have you ever met a Russian, Australian, a proud member of the UK? There's no shame in having pride in your country.
I've never met a proud member of the UK, I must admit.
Us Americans are definitely patriotic.
That's a joke to any Brits watching. Calm down.
But so is the rest of the world. As they should be. It's not a crime to be proud of where you came from. But that doesn't stop others from thinking we only complain and boast about America whenever we travel abroad. This is largely anecdotal. In America, Americans like to complain just like the rest of us. Only a few of them ever even leave the country, so you're meeting an unrepresentative sample. But in their defense, many times, they're right. Yes, this can hit hard in the pride spot, but maybe Europeans could stand to smile a bit more, right?
Yeah.
No? Okay, fine, back to the...
No, he's onto something there, to be fair. Like, we have, like, an American community on this channel. Hopefully I've not upset any of you. If I have, apologies, but you can't please everyone. So, yeah, basically, I would say that the majority of our, like, community on this channel, our subscribers, do seem to be more upbeat and positive. I can't lie. And then, like, on our other reaction channel, our music channel, it tends to be, like, you know, hatred. Like, Brits are very easy just to dish out. Like, even if it is banter or whatever, it's just, like, negativity. There's no need for it. You know what I mean? But I, again, put that down to just the general living conditions in the UK. People are on the edge. But, you know, let's not go too deep into it, you know. We're talking about negativity. Let's not go down that road.
Pathetic, leave me alone face. By the way, that part was written for our European representative. By our European representative. I love all of you. Anyways, statistics viewed by outsiders show that the US is lagging behind. Similar to topics we've already discussed, there's another factor that we have to take into account. Reporting. Every nation reports its own statistics. This means that making statistical comparisons between two developed nations, like the US and the UK, is an exercise in futility. The data is just too close and won't reveal much except that the US counts people one way and the US counts them another. That still doesn't make this misconception true. Americans are fake. Here's the thing. In Europe, citizens are almost proud of the fact that they're really standoffish. But once you get to know them, they're your friend for life. Well, here's a newsflash. Once you get to know an American, they'll also be your friend for life. The thing is, though, they don't use this as an excuse to be a jerk in the beginning.
Fair play.
This list sounds great coming from an American. I was totally the one who should have read this one, but I digress. On a totally different but very popular misconception, Americans are the only ones who call football soccer. Actually, a lot of the world calls it soccer. Even parts of Ireland still call it soccer.
Does anyone care, though? Legit, does anybody care? I think we've all got to a point with football or soccer where we just realise it's just money-orientated nonsense to keep us distracted again. It's pony. It's pony there, I said it.
Oh, what do I mean by still? I'm glad you asked. It was actually the British who coined the term soccer. The word soccer is an abbreviation of association and first appeared in universities in the 1880s, sometimes using the variant spelled soccer with a K. The word is sometimes credited to Charles Redford Brown, an Oxford University student said to have been fond of shortened forms such as brekkers for breakfast and rugger for rugby football. Britain actually started using the word football in the late 20th century, possibly because people incorrectly saw it as an Americanism. This next one, Tristan couldn't believe. Could you not? I'm learning something. To our American viewers, did you know that people in Europe make fun of you for using air conditioning? Why do they need it? Why don't they just leave the window open? Mosquitoes? At least in Florida. But here's why they might be joining us soon. During the 2003 European heatwave, 70,000 people died. This was in large part due to the fact that European homes and buildings are not typically equipped with air conditioning. While they laugh at the Americans for this, hotter summers are going to force them to take appropriate measures, especially since children and the elderly are very susceptible. Again, I stand by mosquitoes. I'm not opening my window in the summer. Winter, absolutely. Open windows.
I don't know. I've never heard of that one, if I'm honest. And I love air conditioning as much as the next person. When I get into a car, it better have air conditioning. I'm not going to lie. And the thing is, it's like, I think certain states in America are a lot hotter than it gets anywhere in the United Kingdom. But in the summer, you know, it can get hot in the UK. But I don't think it's sort of like hot enough where, you know, you need air conditioning. Some days it might be, but I think for me it's more of a depending on the situation. Like if I'm just in my t-shirt and my shorts and it's summer and I've got my sunglasses on, I'll happily undo the window and enjoy the summer breeze. The heat, I like it, you know what I'm saying? I'm not a fan of the winter. But at the same time, if I'm like working and it's the summer, and like in the past when I've been in construction and you're not allowed to wear shorts, and you got your trousers on and your t-shirt, it's like, and your boots, turn the aircon on. Get them windows up. Like, let's get this refrigerated, this van. You know what I mean? And I'm sure it's the same concept for you guys, or a lot of you guys, in your homes in the middle of summer when it's really hot, because at the end of the day, opening the window is not going to help. You know what I mean? Sometimes like you go outside and it's like you can't breathe because it's so thick. So yeah, aircon, like they use it in like Arab countries, don't they? Like Saudi Arabia and Dubai and places like that, because of that same reason. And then yeah, you've got like the bugs and stuff to contend with.
Moving into the top 9, that's a weird number. Top 9. Many parts of the world accuse the United States of accounting for 25% of the world's carbon emissions. Not so nice. But it also accounts for 25% of the world's economic activity. The truth is that several nations, including countries like Canada, have higher per capita emissions than the US. Next, let's talk about how the world thinks Americans are
Blame
ruining
the politicians.
English. Actually, both British English and American English have diverged from a common 16th century ancestral standard, and in some ways, American English is closer to the original than British English. For example, American English has, for the most part, retained the language's rotosity, pronunciation of the R in words like hard, while British has, for the most part, dropped it. Furthermore, this shift in British English happened around the time of the American Revolution, when wealthier Londoners wanted to distinguish themselves from the lower classes. This is only one example, but it goes to show that British English is not an unchanging standard any more than American English. On a totally different note, did you know that Americans don't all live in the suburbs? Nope, not true. The fact is that in America, you have plenty of people that live in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, and
we knew that.
The list goes on. In fact, several regions of the United States are very European, like the Northeast Corridor, for example. The difference between the U.S. and Europe is that if you want to live in the suburbs in the U.S., you can, but you don't have to. Now, this next one is just offensive. Americans are all dumb rednecks. While there are certainly Americans who fit this stereotype, the vast majority don't. Most Americans live in cities near the coasts. Most of them are educated, and most of them are not very different from Europeans in any significant way. Every country has a less educated populace that they themselves make fun of. Even sophisticated nations like Sweden and Switzerland.
To be honest with you, like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the term redneck, if I'm honest. But, like, no, I didn't think every American was in his, what's the words? Own words, dumb rednecks, if I'm allowed to say that. Sorry if I'm not. But I never thought that. And if anything, me personally, I kind of admire the staying away from the city, keeping yourself to yourself, living in the suburbs, like just you and your family. Like, does that make you dumb? Does it make you... It puts you as an outcast because that's what society says. But really, like, leave them alone. And I tell you this right now, if UK was, like, big enough for me to be able to go and live like that, boy, better know. I'll be off skis with the family. Let's go. Let's get out of this nonsense society. So, fair play.
Fair warning, the last 5 on our list get a bit dark and crazy, starting with the idea that America is imperialistic. In many parts of Europe, the United States is seen as an aggressive imperial power, even more so than Russia and China. This is largely because our military presence both in Europe and everywhere else. But in our strong defense, Americans never forced you to watch our movies, quarter our soldiers, obey our laws, or get permission to leave your own countries. It was the Russians that did that, and much, much more. Food for thought, after World War II, the Americans liberated and left. The Russians liberated and stayed. All right, number 4 is sure to be a shocker to a lot of...
But at the same time, isn't there American bases in the majority of the countries around the world, though? So, did you really leave? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You know, at the end of the day, I'd rather it was American bases in every country, you know, keeping everything level and quiet and peaceful than, like, you know, a not-so-friendly country. But I'm pretty sure there's an American base in the majority of countries. I could be wrong.
Americans don't actually all walk around with guns. It's just not true. Except for a few places, the only people you'll ever see carrying guns in America are the police. In fact, you'll see more people walking around with guns in Switzerland than you ever would in America.
Yeah.
Okay. We admit that, like most stereotypes, there is some truth to this next one, but it's been wildly blown out of proportion. Americans are all crazy Christian right-wingers. There's something so right about saying it with that accent. Yes, there are a lot of Christians in America, and while some of them are crazy right-wingers, most of them aren't. In fact, if you ever get a chance to go and stay with one of those crazy Christian families, you'll see that most of them are just genuinely sweet people that go to church on Sundays. This next one sounds like a legit stand-up joke.
What's wrong with that? Am I tripping? What's wrong with that? I can't... Maybe I shouldn't have done this video because it's politics, rednecks, and Christians, religion, racism. Can I put this out? Look, it's not... None of it's my opinion. We're watching him. Blame him. If you've got an issue, go onto his video and write a comment.
If you get injured and can't pay for it, you'll just die in the street. Yeah, many people in Europe think this is what happens in America. As with most things that concern America, they're wrong. You can't be denied emergency medical care in the US. That would go against the Hippocratic Oath. The difference is that you get a bill in the mail a few months later. Of course, debt is another issue, but let's get into that right now. Americans are all in debt. Actually, European citizens carry more debt than Americans. The average household debt in the US, OECD, is 113% of the household's income. In the UK, it's 156%. In Sweden, 173%. And in Denmark, it's a whopping 305%. So, what are some misconceptions?
Do you know what the funny thing about debt is? Let me just teach you a little something. The easiest way to put it is like this. Say you had a bag of 10 marbles, and the marbles represented currency, right? And there was only 10 marbles ever made, which represents all currency. And the bank owned them. and then the bank say to you, okay, so here's the 10 marbles. We're gonna lend them to you so you can go to university, or college, or you can buy a mortgage. We'll lend them to you, but in return, we want 11 marbles back. How can you give them 11 marbles back when that marble doesn't exist? That money hasn't even been printed. Debt's an illusion. It's just another form of a handcuff. Just an invisible handcuff. You know what I mean? So if you're in debt, don't really stress about it too much. I know that's like crap advice. Like, try not to get into debt, obviously. But don't, beat yourself up about it. Don't let it ruin your life. I wasn't expecting it to go down that road, but talking to me in politics, I've been through too much. I've got my opinions on a lot of things, but I don't know if you want to hear them, so I don't know if this video will be going out. But if it does, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't take things too personally. Focus on your families. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Leave it in the comments what you want to see next, and I'll see you on the next one.
If you want to see us do more of these videos, then like it and share it and subscribe, cause it's getting pretty expensive. We need to get monetized, cause it's getting pretty expensive. We can't afford loaded fries. Like it and share it and subscribe.